Ancestors who spoke with bravest fire, lend us your senses that we may know another world is on her way, breathed into life with our participation in her creation. Forebears who led the way where there was at first no way, lend us your persistence, your temerity, Your assurance that the moral arc of the universe does indeed bend toward justice. Ones who went before us, sacrificing for a future not your own, help us to give of ourselves that the common stones in our hands today might be cathedrals of compassion tomorrow, halls of restorative justice in the future, sheltering walls of beloved community. It is Sunday morning, the day we gather. Let us be thankful and full of praise to be in the company of those who came before, yet are ever in our midst. Those opening words by Karen G. Johnston, a colleague. I would invite the soul singers forward. They are going to lead us in number 1026 in this book, If Every Woman. And I would invite you to rise in body and spirit. Elaine, if you have any, do you need the mic? Do you know instructions? Okay. Remain standing, please, for the lighting of the chalice and the doxology. And would our chalice lighters come forward, please, to ignite the flame and lead us in the words. It's great when we have so much going on that there's a little tie-up in the aisle.
Let this flame be to us a symbol of the wholeness we seek.
Its brightness dispelling gloom, lighting path to faith and hope.
Its glow reminding us of the sacred bonds that link us to all living things.
Its radiance calling us to cast the light of freedom, justice, and peace upon all the world. Please be seated. I understand the desire for a front row seat, and that space down there is fine. Good morning and welcome. I'm the Reverend Susan Milner. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and it is my honor and my pleasure to serve as interim minister to this historic and future-facing congregation. We gratefully acknowledge the Patuxet Wampanoag people on whose ancestral lands we gather today. We commit to support and honor their history and culture. We welcome all of you, members, friends, visitors, newcomers today, including, of course, those of you who join us online. We're so glad to be able to have people present in all of those ways. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, whatever your age, for this 1 hour, you are part of this congregation, and we want you to feel warmly welcomed and as if you can belong, as if you can belong, and to belong. Everyone here is invited to the coffee hour following the service. If you've never been there, it's through that door, through the parlor and down there. We love to greet new people as well as talk to each other. Coffee hour's lively here. Please join us. I think, except to just say that we're really glad you're here this morning, I think that that is everything. I would just remind chairs of committees that there's a joint board and chairs meeting this afternoon at 4 in the Harvey Hall, but other than that, I don't think we have announcements. So let us sing our children out, and I have a feeling it's going to be lively downstairs. I love that religious education is thriving, but it's always disconcerting to see that many people leave at this point in the service. And I'm told that the meeting this afternoon for chairs and boards at 4:30 rather than 4. Sorry about that. It's that time in the month that we take one Sunday to this time to share joys and concerns by lighting a candle, either silently or speaking a few words. Caroline Mitchell, who is our worship associate this morning, is going to come down to help with that if you need it. But we would invite you, if you have a joy or concern you want to share this morning, to come forward down this far aisle, and at each person's turn to come forward, light the candle, and if you have something to say, please tell us your name, your pronouns, and what it is briefly that you want to share this morning. But first, I want to see if there's anybody who's with us on Zoom that has a joy or concern that they would like to share. You can indicate that to Emma, who's doing our tech, by either turning on your camera or putting something in the chat, and we'll put you up on the screen. Is there anyone, Emma? Okay, thank you, thank you. So those in the room, if you have a joy or a concern to share, please come forward.
Lois Wood. Since January 6th, I've had a bit of a hard time finding a lot of hope. But yesterday I was walking with my cousin Margie with our dogs, and the daffodils are up, and the crocuses are up, and there's tons of robins and cardinals, and the sun was shining, and it's warmer, and I feel some hope.
My name is Mike Wilson. I light this candle in memory of my sister Tracy, who passed away 3 weeks ago after an 8-year battle with cancer, and to thank all of those who had sent cards of condolence to my wife and I.
My name is Michael Gardner. My pronouns are he and him. And I lit 2 candles of joy. Today is the birthday of our son Adam, who was born in Colombia all those years ago and came to us at 13 months and has enriched our lives since then, ever since. It's also the birthday of Ruth Woodruff, who was a member of this church with her husband, Woody, for many, many years. They left a number of years ago to go to assisted living in Quincy. Ruth is now in a nursing home in Norwell. Today is her 98th birthday, and she is as fit and lively and enthusiastic a Bruins and Celtics and Patriots and Red Sox fan as you could imagine. So any of you who remember Ruth and or Woody and would like to send a card to her, I'll be happy to get you the contact information. And she doesn't live that far away. It's just right up the road. So if anybody'd like to visit Ruth on her birthday, or not on her birthday, which is today, the family will be there sometime later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tori, and my pronouns are he and her. And I would like to send out a concern I have for the Mutter family. They are dealing with their son and her son's girlfriend, that are dealing with addiction, and the whole family deals with it. And I'm sending prayers to the earth and to my Creator that they get the help they need. And may you send prayers or blessings or call out to the spirits, however you do it, to help them along. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori.
I'm Carol Robison. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And this is a Robison family update. One candle that I lit is for my older sister, Ann, who is out in Scottsdale, Arizona, coping with the loss of, within a month, of both her daughter, Connie, my niece, and her husband, Bob. She's doing well. She puts one foot in front of the other and gets done what needs to be done, but please keep her in your thoughts as she seeks an answer to the question, why? And the second candle that I lit was for my daughter, Lindsay. I know you've heard different things about her over time. She completed her undergraduate degree in December at what was the most affirming set of ceremonies I've ever witnessed. And then she came back to live with us and look for a job, and she has one, and she's looking forward and earning money, and so as we turn the corner into spring, I think things look pretty bright for her right now. So that's, just please keep both Lindsay and Anne in your thoughts, and let's keep them within our sacred circle of concern.
I'm a visitor at your church this morning. Thank you for welcoming me. I have a concern. It's about my 14-year-old It's for my 14-year-old grandson, and he's trying to heal. And I would certainly appreciate you including him in your prayers and thoughts. Thank you.
This last candle I light for joys and concerns, deeply felt but not yet spoken.
Thank you, Carolyn. It was almost exactly 5 years ago today that many of our congregations, including the one I served, first went online because of the pandemic. Few of us anticipated what kind of a ride that would be. So this morning, our prayer is offered in part, and only in part, in memory of those we lost and the struggle of that time, and the ongoing health struggles that people have, as well as our struggles of today, which are different. Would you join, please, in a spirit of prayer and meditation? Spirit of love and truth, help us to feel you in our breathing in and breathing out. Quiet our minds, even if only for a moment. Still our bodies, even if only for a moment. Soothe our souls in this holy moment. When uncertainty pervades, give us rest from worry. When fear rises, give us peace. When pain surfaces, give us a balm. Some of our spirits are so weary. Some of our bodies are so tired. Some of our minds feel frantic and uneasy. How long will this last? We ask in desperation. Spirit of life-giving love, remind us of the cycles of life so that we might turn toward the dawn, toward the thaw, and toward the rebirth of spring with new hope. Make that hope alive in us, ignite that hope so that it burns brighter than our fears, and may that bright hope shine for others to witness, that our faith might be a beacon and our love a lamp to guide the way. O luminous Spirit, fill us with gratitude as we turn toward one another in the human family, never alone on the journey, always reminded of a greater love that holds us all. Let us now enter into a moment of sacred silence. May our hopes and dreams take flight on the wings of love. Amen. Today's prayer was written by Kristen Green. Thursday, I suddenly had an idea about doing a group reading for the service this morning, kind of a dramatic reading. I emailed the worship committee and said, is it kind of crazy to think about doing this late? And they said, no, we're all over it. That's the spirit of making things happen that I love so much in this congregation, and I think makes you such a vital congregation. So for that willingness to participate, that willingness to take something on, you are very much appreciated. As we take the morning offering, which goes to sustain the ministries of this church, let me remind you that you can still write a check or designate an offering for the Share the Plate. This month we're trying to fund a scholarship for the third year, for Native American child or children through the Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness, and we can still take those. We hope you'll give generously. The morning offering will now be gratefully received. I'd like to invite up the members of the women of this congregation that are going to represent some well-known UUs in Unitarians and Universalists from history. And I'm going to invite Caroline up here to be the narrator.
Women in the 18th and 19th century were supposed to stay in their place, in the home, raising children, not get an education, not vote, not work, not to think for themselves about God or life. But somehow Unitarian and Universalist women didn't always fit the mold.
I am Abigail Adams, the second First Lady of the United States. I was told I was also a mother and managed a farm. I made homemade bullets for the Revolutionary War. And I told my husband in no uncertain terms when he was writing that new Constitution of his, remember the ladies.
I am Julia Ward Howe. You probably know me as the woman who wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic, but I was also an active abolitionist. My husband supported John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, and we were strongly against slavery. I also fought for women's rights, prison reform, and education for all. You know, in my day, women couldn't go to college, and poor people got no education at all.
I am Frances Watkins Harper, a novelist, poet, writer, and educator. Some have called me the mother of African American journalism because I wrote and published so many magazine articles. I also fought against slavery and helped slaves escape through the Underground Railway. After the Civil War, I joined Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony in fighting for women's right to vote.
I'm Clara Barton. I was a nurse on the front lines of the Civil War at a time when women weren't supposed to nurse soldiers, and it was brutal. I founded the American Red Cross. I was also a teacher and established the first public school in New Jersey. People didn't think poor children or women should go to school, but I did.
So, you were a nurse. I'm Florence Nightingale. I was a nurse too. That's amazing. And I faced the same problem you did, although, as you can tell, I came from England and a pretty wealthy family. I didn't want to get married. I wanted to serve where I worked in England, hospitals, for the poor, with their terrible sanitation on the front lines with dying soldiers in the Crimean War.
You know me, I think. Oh, sorry. I am Lydia Mariah Child. You know me, I think, as the author of that cute Thanksgiving song, Over the River and Through the Woods. A nice tune, but I believe I have done more than that. Everybody loved my children's stories and my book, The Frugal Housewife, which frankly I wrote because my husband and I were having a tough time surviving. But my reading public wasn't thrilled when I joined the abolitionist cause and spoke out strongly against slavery. I also helped slaves in the Underground Railway. Later, I founded the Massachusetts Women's Suffrage Association, advocating for the vote for women, and also worked for the cause of the Native Americans having their own language and religion.
You're certainly a remarkable group of women, but I have some questions for you all. In your time, All women were supposed to be wives and mothers first. What do you all think about marriage?
Well, to be honest, not much. My husband Samuel believed in abolition and many other good causes, but he didn't believe women should work. He resented it when I wanted to work outside of the home. It was only after he died that I was really able to do what I wanted. Although he died without leaving any money, I had still my freedom. He also didn't believe that women should have sexual freedom outside of the marriage, though he believed men could, the old double standard.
I have a slightly different opinion. I truly loved my husband, John. He was a good man. He respected my opinions, although he didn't listen to me about putting women's rights into the Constitution. I said, remember the ladies, and he forgot them. And he did leave me alone to raise the children and tend the farm by myself for years on end, while he worked for the Continental Congress and was ambassador to France and then president of the United States. I confess, it was sometimes very hard. I felt very lonely. It was really better later in our lives when he retired and we could spend some time together on our farm in Quincy.
Well, I can't really comment. I chose not to marry so that I could do the important work of helping others. Some people thought that was strange. I didn't. I was happy with my work.
I started working as a seamstress when I was 14 and didn't get married until I was 35, after I had already become a writer and activist. I loved my husband Fenton, a widower with 3 children, but I must admit, I stopped lecturing while I was married to him, and only started again after he died. I agree with Julia, however, that there is a double standard about sex for men and for women. In fact, I wrote a poem about that. It's called The Double Standard. Do any of you want to hear a little of it? It's too long to read it all. Crime has no sex, and yet today I wear the brand of shame, while he, amid the gay and proud, still bears an honored name. Can you blame me if I've learned to think your hate of vice a sham, when you so coldly crushed me down and then excused the man?
Excuse me. My parents exposed me to all sorts of reading and study and travel. But in the end, they wanted me to use all that education just to be a good housewife and mother. My father nearly had a stroke when I refused an eligible young man and refused to marry anybody. But I found my true vocation was nursing, healing the sick and wounded, and improving the terrible hospitals in England.
My husband David was a good man too, and we worked together in many of the same causes, but he couldn't manage money and wound up in jail for debt. We both had to struggle quite a bit. After he died, I continued my own work and for the first time had some financial security.
How many of you supported the woman's right to vote? How many of you actually got to vote in your lifetimes? Is there anything you'd like to say to young women today?
And exercise the right to vote we all fought so hard for. Get involved, use your God-given hearts, talents, and minds freely and generously.
It's March, it's Women's History Month, and just when you're trying to convince yourself that history has brought progress for women, advertisers are ready to school you. On Thursday, I ran across an ad saying, "Paint by number kits for adults and women." Adults and women. It's such a trivial slight compared to the invisibility happening to LGBTQIA folks, the ripping of immigrants from the country, and the cruel canceling of jobs for thousands of government workers. But there's a deeper threat to women's rights in a society that only acknowledges generally two genders. A threat that we need to pay attention to in the experiences that people live. And of course, lived experience is history in the making, and we know this about history. As much as we want it to be a linear progress toward justice and equity, it isn't. Patterns of dominance, greed for power, they all circle around, and again we have to challenge what's asserted and enacted and propagandized. The point of studying history, of reminding ourselves of these women this morning, isn't just to be proud of the giants of the past because they were ours, but to be inspired for the work that still needs to be done, or God help us, needs to be done again. Sadly, the struggles of our own times are beginning to sound too much like those of the past, with women dying for lack of health care and pregnancy. But the good news is that there is so much inspiration, so much strength in the lives of women who have come before. And consider the Unitarian Universalist women, including those who spoke through our First Parish Women today. Universalist Clara Barton, known now for nursing at the Civil War front and founding the Red Cross, which became international. She was also the first, or one of the very first, women employees of the US federal government. She wouldn't last long today. In the patent office where she worked, she was harassed relentlessly by the male employees. And then later, in her struggle to get vital support for men dying in the battlefield, she was dismissed as just a nurse and just a woman. She was called unseemly for daring to go on to the battlefront instead of courageous. But you know what? She improved health care, life-saving techniques for men dying on the battlefield around the world. It spread around the world. In truth, society didn't trust these women as adults with control of their lives, yet they were strong enough to achieve what others had not. Right now, we would trust those women were they here to speak desperately needed truth to power. And in this particular March, one woman's life has been speaking to me, somebody you might not have heard of, suffragist, birth control reformer, and anti-war advocate Mary Ware Coffin did it. She was not a Unitarian or a Universalist, so far as I know, but she showed the vision and courage that we would embrace. Now, unusually for her time, she was educated in art, and she actually landed a job teaching at the Drexel Institute of Art in Philadelphia. And there she met and married architect William Dennett, and soon became pregnant with her first child. But when she went into labor, something went very wrong, as it had for millennia, tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years for women, and she nearly died. Her attending physician advised her never to have another child because pregnancy would be dangerous to her life. The only problem was he refused to give her any information about birth control, which neither she nor her husband understood. Keep in mind that distributing birth control was made illegal in the United States by the Comstock laws in 1850, which, by the way, Clarence Thomas thinks should be reconsidered. Mary Dennett may have wondered why the government could not trust her with the information she needed to sustain her life. Well, her path took many turns. She did have more children and survived, but she also worked for the American Suffrage League to advocate for the vote for women. She co-founded the Twilight Sleep Association, which was trying to get drugs that could be used to ease the pain of childbirth and therefore cut down on the use of forceps, making it safer for woman and child. And unfortunately, during this time, her personal life fell apart. William had an affair with a married woman of a well-known family, left and refused to support their children. Later, he caused her great public embarrassment by publicly proposing that she join him, his partner, and his partner's husband in a harmonious love quadrangle. But in 1914, she met Unitarian Margaret Sanger, famous advocate for birth control, and she got involved, heart and soul, with Sanger's campaign to make birth control legal. All of the teachers from our Unitarian Universalist whole life programs for kids of many ages and adults would have been inspired by Dennett, who had written early on an age-appropriate sex education pamphlet for her own children. And now, as part of Sanger's movement, she made that pamphlet and others she wrote public, and to say it was controversial is to put it mildly. In 1929, Mary Dennett was arrested for her work, which was deemed obscene. Dennett was an incredible person of steadfast principle, and so she refused to avoid a jail sentence by paying a fine. She wrote, "If a few federal officials want to use their power to penalize me for my work for the young people of this country, they must bear the shame of my jail sentence. It is government which is disgraced, not I." What is wrong with you, she was asking, that you won't trust women with their own bodies? In our time, when the frat boys in the White House are threatening to control just about everything in our lives, and those who lead sometimes cower, it's worth noting that Dennett did not hesitate to fight fully for what she thought was needed rather than a pale compromise. And this is one place that she and Margaret Sanger parted company. Mary Dennett wanted birth control available to everyone across the counter. If you wanted it, you got it. While Sanger advocated for it to be in the hands of doctors to control and distribute. In 1919, Dennett focused on a complete repeal of the Comstock law. The Congress didn't do it, but the case against her 10 years later provided the basis for a court ultimately, much later, declaring the law could not be enforced. Trust women to make wise and informed decisions about pregnancy, she seemed to be saying with her life and her words. Now, I wish that all the forces that she struggled with were ancient history and the way we mean that term as something we don't have to worry about now, and we know it's not. Since the Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade and Dobbs, women, again, have died for lack of medical treatment. Project 2025, the real plan for the current administration, seeks a federal ban on all abortion, including after-day medication. And last June, Republicans in Congress blocked a bill to guarantee access to contraception, to guarantee access to contraception. Mary Dennett, where are you? The Heritage think tank, which spawned Project 2025, claims that restricting birth control would be healthy because it would link sex to its consequences. Well, that plan trusts women, doesn't it? It trusts them to bear all the consequences of sex, of rape, of maternity, of raising children in poverty. If the people pushing these views in 2025 are really concerned about moral purity, if all the anti-abortion advocates in the church, in the Supreme Court, Congress really care about children and nurturing them, then why not do this? Pass legislation requiring biological fathers of babies to bear 50% of the custody and provide 50% of their financial support. Easily available DNA testing can provide an absolute answer as to whether anyone is the father of a child. Let's be clear. It's never just about abortion or contraception. It's about controlling women. One of the Project 2025 creators said openly last summer, yes, we should return to the time when women had no vote. More to the point, the SAVE Act, which was introduced into Congress in February, would create an interesting federal voting requirement in which you have to have a birth certificate and a current ID in the same last name. In addition to transgender people who have changed their names, this act could deprive married women who have taken their husbands' names, deprive them of the vote. Oh, it's not intended for that, they say. Let's be inspired by Mary Dennett, who wrote, "Our basic principles that government derive their just powers from the consent of the governed undeniably imply the right of women to vote, since women are governed and women are people." Unitarian Universalists have historically fought for the right to vote and the right to reproductive freedom, and we will always fight for them. It's holy work because it's about life, and it's about agency, and it's about reaching full humanity, and so it can't be refused. But I hope the women who tilled the ground in earlier times can be our inspiration. I hope we will learn the lessons of history that submission and compromise don't get us very far, but courage does. And I hope we won't be in the fight alone. It's so important. It's so important for men, for non-binary people, for anyone not seen by the society as women, to join with women in solidarity. And perhaps in our advocacy, it's time to leave aside the complex conceptual arguments that are removed from us personally and just insist on deep, spirit-filled confidence. So if you're someone who wants to support women, I would say this whenever you can. I trust women to make decisions about life. I trust women to use as much reason and sense as anyone else when they go into a voting booth. I trust women to serve on the Supreme Court, where they have largely outperformed a lot of men. I trust women in professions, even if they were encouraged by a diversity and inclusion and equity effort, because they are some of the most ethical professionals and most reliable workers. I trust women to know what their last names are. I trust that women are people and their consent to being governed is absolutely required. The work of seeking freedom and agency is holy work because it is the work of realizing a fuller humanity for all of us. We can trust women never to give up. We have been here from the beginning, and we will rise, if necessary, again and again and again. And would you rise, embody our spirit, and join in singing number 109 as we come marching, marching. chalice lighter come forward, please, to put out the flame, and I invite you to join in the words for extinguishing the chalice. They are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Mindful of our highest aspirations, bound by common faith and purpose, and yet beginning with ourselves as we are, let us take one more step together in our unending quest for dignity, justice, and love. Amen. Those words of benediction are written by Rebecca A. Edmiston Lang, and the reading today was written by Susan Giron.